Over the years, there have been many retellings of the classic Mary Shelley tale of Frankenstein, some good, some bad, and some really bad. You can make the case that 2014's I, Frankenstein stands above the rest for being the worst and most baffling. It's a movie less concerned about exploring the character of Frankenstein's monster and is more preoccupied with a war between gargoyles and demons with huge CGI action set pieces. And to no one's surprise, it bombed both critically and commercially. Well, today I want to revisit this failure, to explore the history and offer up some of my thoughts on why it's so bad. The story of I, Frankenstein starts back in 2010 with a man by the name of Kevin Grevioux. Grevioux is an actor, screenwriter, director, and comic book writer who you may know from co-creating the Underworld series. Grevioux sold the original screenplay of I, Frankenstein to Lakeshore Entertainment in 2010, which was based on his Darkstorm Comics studio graphic novel by the same name. A year later, Lakeshore brought on Stuart Beattie to rewrite the script and direct the picture. For the lead role of Frankenstein's monster, aka Adam, Aaron Eckhart was given the honors. We also got Yvonne Strahovski as the female lead and Bill Nye as the main villain. Principal photography kicked off in February of 2012, shooting primarily in Australia. By the end of production, the budget was reported to be around $65 million, not including marketing, distribution, or the theater's cuts. So it was estimated that the film needed to make roughly $130 million in order to break even. The movie had an initial release date of February 22nd of 2013 before it was pushed back to September 13th. It was then pushed back for a final time to 2014 with a dreaded January release on the 24th. Leading up to the movie's release, Kevin Grevioux expressed interest in making a sequel, and even a crossover with the Underworld franchise. In fact, in an early draft of the script, he had Kate Beckinsale reprising her role as Selena from that series in a post-credit scene, but this never came to fruition. But still, sequels and crossovers were not off the table, and it would all depend on the box office gross and response from audiences. However, Frankenstein was dead on arrival, with an abysmal opening weekend gross of $8 million. It debuted number 6 in the box office behind Ride Along, Lone Survivor, The Nut Job, Frozen, and Jack Ryan: Shadow Recruit. Domestically, the film would make $19 million, and overseas it would rake in $57 million, for a total worldwide gross of $76 million. Although I couldn't find any sources on the exact amount of money this lost, it's safe to assume it was in the tens of millions. But the box office is only half the battle. What about the reviews? Well, they were worse somehow. The film currently boasts a 5% critic and 38% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, in addition to a 5.1 out of 10 on IMDb and a 1.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Usually I'm of the belief that there's more factors at play that cause a movie to bomb, aside from it just being bad. But I, Frankenstein is one of those outliers where its quality can be attributed as the main reason for it flopping. So let's take the time to break down everything that's bad about I, Frankenstein. As per usual, no offense to you if you like this movie, because I'm about to say a lot of mean things about it. Also, spoiler alert for this film ahead, if anyone even cares. But first, a quick recap of the plot for all of you who are fortunate enough not to have seen it. The film opens in the 17th century after Victor Frankenstein has just created his monster, who he dispatches of right away. The monster seeks revenge and kills Frankenstein's wife, and Frankenstein himself dies in the process of trying to kill his monster. The monster is then attacked by a bunch of demons who want to abduct him for nefarious reasons, but he is saved by some shape-shifting gargoyles. Then we get the backstory for this world about this century-long war between demons and these angel-like gargoyles, which the monster has been stuck in the middle of. The monster gets the name Adam, and he goes into hiding for a few hundred years until we catch up to modern day. Adam has re-emerged in society and has gotten the attention of the main villain of this movie, the demon prince Naberius. It's revealed that Naberius has been tracking down Adam because he wants to recreate Frankenstein's science so he can create a monster army of his own that his demons can possess. And pretty much the rest of the film follows the demons trying to capture Adam or Frankenstein's book while Adam and the gargoyles fight back. There's a shoehorned in love interest who is also the lead scientist working for Naberius, who she doesn't know is evil and a literal demon. Now, when it comes to bad movies, there's a certain spectrum they fall on where they're still enjoyable. On one end of the spectrum, there are movies that are so bad that they're good, where you can just sit back and point and laugh at how stupid they are or how baffling they are. And then, on the other side of the spectrum, we have bad movies which you know are bad, but are still enjoyable when you're in the right headspace. Or maybe they have that one quality that still provides an entertaining watch. You could also call these films guilty pleasures. However, Right in the middle of these two sides of the spectrum is a zone where a bad movie is just not enjoyable at all. It's not so bad it's laughable, and there's not really any quality, which is exceptional. As a result, it is just a boring, painful watch. I, Frankenstein is one of those movies that falls perfectly in the center. A movie that is just the normal amount of bad. The type of film that you will forget about as soon as the credits roll. I'm sure as soon as I post this video, all the knowledge and opinions I have about it will be jettisoned from my brain, never to be thought of again. In the lead role of Adam, aka Frankenstein's monster, we have Aaron Eckhart. I haven't seen enough of Eckhart's work to determine if I think he's a bad actor or not, but he's certainly giving a phoned-in performance in this film. I touched on this last week when I talked about Will Smith's performance in After Earth, but Eckhart is doing that thing where he plays a serious, emotionless character. Now this can work if you are adding a little nuance to the character, but as it stands in this film, it is just boring to watch and results in a one-note performance. How am I supposed to care about this character when he acts like a brick wall for a majority of the film? Also, this ties into the writing as well. We are given one scene where Adam actually shows some emotion and we get some insight into his character. The filmmakers are so unconcerned about exploring who Adam is, which is such a shame, because Frankenstein's monster is such an interesting character with a rich history that many other filmmakers have done fabulous things with. Like, take the opening sequence from Van Helsing. Frankenstein literally has one line of dialogue, but that line and the way it's delivered are 10 times more interesting than everything we see Adam do in this movie. And that's another thing. For a film called I, Frankenstein, they are so dismissive of the Frankenstein mythos. The filmmakers stripped away everything unique about the Frankenstein story and decided to focus on the generic faceless demon versus gargoyle war. The supporting cast is also pretty underwhelming. We have Yvonne Strahovski as the love interest, who is fine but forgettable. We have Miranda Otto as the leader of the gargoyles, who isn't given anything interesting to work with. And then Jai Courtney as another gargoyle who has beef with Adam at one point. There was a point in time where if you had Jai Courtney in your movie, it meant it was probably going to be bad. Although he has delivered some solid performances in good films recently, so that does give me hope. They even managed to secure Bill Nye for the villain role, who is a fantastic actor, but not even he could make the dialogue sound natural. The dialogue in this film is beyond cheesy, and again, not in a so bad it's good way where you can point and laugh. Well, actually, I take that back. There are some pretty funny lines in here.
It's alive. It's alive!
Like that scene where a gargoyle tells its whole life story right as it dies.
I'll do what I can.
No. I wish to be with Ophir. It was forbidden by the order. It will not be so anymore.
It reminded me of that Brooklyn Nine-Nine clip.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die before I ever got to find my twin sister's killer.
What?
That's the reason I joined the force, remember? To find the man who murdered my twin sister. That's my whole story.
Debbie, there's no way you told me that.
But as a whole, the dialogue in this film is comprised with world building you don't care about and exposition so blunt it's like you are getting hit over the head with a bat. This movie does the thing where you don't see the dialogue actually be delivered by the person who's speaking, and they cut to reaction shots instead, so you can tell they just added in the ADR in post. And on top of this, you have voiceover, which is just spoon-feeding you all the information they forgot to film while on set. Focusing on action over character or story is not a big surprise when it comes to this genre. In fact, you can almost expect it to some degree. But in order for this to work, the action needs to be good, and it low-key sucks in this movie. The actual fight choreography is pretty good, but it's shot in such a terrible way with some awful editing that it really takes you out of the moment. And to add insult to injury, a majority of the action is just a CGI slop fest. And again, this wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the visual effects were good. But when it comes to I, Frankenstein, they're just not. It's painfully obvious that this film did not have the budget it needed in order to tell its story properly. And as a result, it looks cheap and like it was made for TV. Even the lighting is bad, with it being very apparent that a majority of the film was shot on a soundstage. It has a very flat and artificial look to it. And really, I think this is the main problem of the film and where a lot of these technical issues come from. This is a movie that desperately needed a higher budget. They were working with too little for how much they were trying to do. But in reality, they should have scrapped the entire project from the get-go, as the script sucked. Alright, that's all I have to say. Let's wrap this up. Much like the character it is attempting to tell a story about, I, Frankenstein is a monster of a film stitched together with half-baked ideas. It relies too heavily on CGI, the dialogue and characters are extremely weak, and overall, it is just really boring. All of this resulted in a box office bomb and abysmal reviews. So that's the story of I, Frankenstein, a cinematic disaster. But what are your thoughts on I, Frankenstein? Have you seen it? What is your favorite Frankenstein movie? I'd love to know down in the comments. This has been Tom from Isenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. And here's a sneak peek of next week's video.
It's Morbin time.